Okay, I want you to try a little visualization exercise with me, just for a second. Picture yourself standing right in the center of Rome today.
Right now.
Right now. It's sunset. You've got that golden hour light hitting the Colosseum, all those massive, jagged stones. And it's beautiful, sure.
Oh, it's gorgeous, picturesque.
But let's be honest about what you're actually seeing. It's a ruin.
Yeah.
It's the skeleton of something that died a long, long time ago.
It's a graveyard of a civilization, essentially.
Exactly. So now I want you to rewind the tape. Go back almost 2,000 years, let's say 117 AD. You're in that exact same spot.
Okay.
But the smell is different. It smells like spices and sweat and incense. And the stones aren't crumbling. They're polished marble, gleaming white. The streets are just gridlocked with people from every corner of the known world.
This is the peak.
This is the absolute peak. This is the empire under Emperor Trajan.
And, to really understand the fall, you have to grasp the height. It's difficult to overstate the sheer scale of this machine. In 117 AD, Rome isn't just a city. For the people there, it is the world.
It's a whole universe.
It is. We're talking about a superstate controlling everything from the foggy coasts of Britain all the way to the deserts of the Middle East.
And think about managing that with no internet, no phones.
It's massive. You have 60 million people under one law, using one currency. They built roads and aqueducts so perfectly engineered that people genuinely believed it would last forever. They called it Roma Eterna, eternal Rome.
They thought they'd solved civilization.
They really did.
And that right there, that brings us to the glitch in our brains.
Oh.
Because we look at the ruins today and we think, okay, so what went wrong? And pop culture has trained us to expect this big Michael Bay moment.
Right, the giant explosion.
We want the single dramatic final battle where the bad guy wins, the hero dies, and the credits roll.
Yeah.
But looking at the research for this deep dive, that's just not what happened, is it?
No, not at all. And that's the first big insight here. There was no single explosion, no solitary villain just pressing a destruct button.
So what's the mission then?
The mission for this deep dive is to deconstruct that myth, the fall of Rome. Well, it wasn't an event. It was a process, a very long, very agonizing process.
So if we're stripping away the Hollywood version, what's a better metaphor? If it wasn't a car crash, what was it?
Think of it like a huge, beautiful old house. From the street, it looks solid, maybe the paint's fresh, but inside, the foundation is rotting, the pipes are leaking, you've got termites eating the support beams, and while all of that's happening, a massive hurricane starts battering the outside.
So it's a two-front war.
Precisely. The roof flies off because of the storm, but the walls were already going to collapse because of the termites. It's that combination, the rot from the inside meeting the storm from the outside.
That's a much more complex picture. And looking at our sources, that rot and that storm, they cover a lot of ground. We're going to be talking about economic meltdowns, terrible leadership, pandemics, some climate weirdness.
And migration crises. It sounds uncomfortably familiar, doesn't it?
It really, really does. So let's go looking for the termites first. If there was a golden age of Rome, when did the gold start to flake off? Where's that first crack?
Well, historians generally point to the year 180 AD. This is the end of a period ruled by what we call the 5 good emperors.
A good run of competence.
A great run. And the last of them was Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor. If you've seen Gladiator, he's the old wise king at the start.
The Stoic.
A true Stoic. But when he died, the stability died with him. And the reason for that instability, well, it has a name, Commodus.
Oh, Commodus.
Yeah.
This guy, reading about him, talk about a character study and failing upward. His dad is this deep, thoughtful philosopher, and his son is, how do you even describe him?
Unhinged is probably the polite academic term.
The sources say he actually thought he was the reincarnation of Hercules.
He did. And he didn't just believe it. He acted on it. He would literally go down into the Colosseum and fight as a gladiator.
Which is just insane, right? Pause on that. Imagine the president putting on MMA gloves and fighting in the octagon on TV. It's not just weird. It breaks the whole dignity of the office.
Exactly. It signaled a complete breakdown of order at the very top. He wasn't governing, he was performing. And, he was executing senators he didn't like, spending money he didn't have, so naturally it didn't end well.
He was strangled in his bath, wasn't he?
By his wrestling partner, actually. It was a hired hit.
A fitting end. But here's where I want to push a bit. Bad leaders happen. History's full of them. Why did this kick off a collapse? Why couldn't the system just reset?
Because the system itself was fragile. Commodus's death, it didn't lead to a reset. It led to a power vacuum. And this kicks off what we call the Third Century Crisis. From about 235 to 284 AD, the empire just goes into a chaotic free fall. And if you want a statistic that perfectly sums up the instability, try this. In just 50 years, Rome had over 50 different emperors.
Wait, 50 emperors in 50 years? That's one a year. How do you run a government like that?
You don't. It was a revolving door of murder. These were the barracks emperors. Most were generals who seized power, ruled for a few months, and were then murdered by their own troops. It was total anarchy.
And while the leaders are playing this deadly game of musical chairs, the structural damage is getting catastrophic.
Absolutely. This is where the economic rot really sets in.
Right, because I was reading about the coinage. It sounds like a scam. Can you explain it simply? How does the government stealing silver from its own coins actually break an economy?
It was desperation. The emperors needed constant money to bribe the soldiers to keep them loyal, but Rome was running out of silver.
Couldn't mine it fast enough.
Exactly, so they started debasing the currency. Imagine you have a silver coin that's 100% silver. The government takes it, melts it down, mixes in cheap copper, and mints 2 coins that are only 50% silver.
You've just doubled your money supply.
But you've also just halved the value of every single coin in circulation, and they did this over and over. By the end, a silver coin was basically bronze with a thin silver wash. The result: hyperinflation. Prices went through the roof.
So your average Roman is just watching their savings evaporate.
It was worse than that. The economy started reverting to barter. People just stopped using money. Trade broke down. At the same time, because of the civil wars, farms are being abandoned.
Taxes were too high.
Crushing, so people just left the land. The entire economic engine of the empire was seizing.
It got so bad the empire actually broke into pieces, right? This is a detail I think people forget.
They do. It fractured. You had the Gallic Empire breaking away in France and Britain. And in the east, you had the Palmyrene Empire. And that brings us to a figure who really deserves the spotlight.
Queen Zenobia.
Zenobia.
I love this story. The sources describe her as an absolute powerhouse. She wasn't just a rebel, she was building a rival state.
She was incredibly formidable. She led this breakaway empire from Palmyra in modern-day Syria, and she actually conquered Egypt.
Which is a huge deal. Egypt was the breadbasket.
It's where the grain came from. She took Rome's food supply. She held her own for a while until Rome finally pulled itself together enough to drag her back in chains. But her success shows just how weak the central government had become.
But it didn't fall then. It should have, but someone hit the pause button.
That someone was a soldier named Diocletian. He comes in at 284 AD and basically puts a tourniquet on the bleeding. He was a pragmatist. He realized the empire was just too big for one person to rule.
The communication lag alone must have been impossible.
It was, so he did something radical. He split it.
The famous East-West split.
Exactly. He divided the empire into 2 halves, East and West, and created a system of 4 rulers, the Tetrarchy, to share the burden. It brought stability, but it also created 2 distinct orbits.
And then shortly after, Emperor Constantine takes it a step further. We know him as the guy who legalized Christianity.
Right, the vision of the cross in the sky. And legalizing Christianity was a massive cultural shift, but geopolitically, his biggest move was building a brand new capital in the East, Constantinople.
Modern-day Istanbul.
Yes. And this is where it gets really interesting for the fall narrative. Because on paper, a new, strong capital sounds great. But if you're living in the West, in Rome or Milan, this is actually really bad news.
Why? Isn't a strong empire good for everyone?
Not if the resources are finite. Constantine basically shifted the center of gravity. The East was richer, it had the trade routes, it was more urban. When the capital moved, the best people, the money, the focus, it all went with it.
So it's like a corporate restructuring where the parent company just spins off the feeling subsidiary.
That is a perfect analogy. The East bought itself another 1,000 years of life, but the West was left poor, with a longer border to defend. The West became the bad bank.
So the West is our rotting house. And the rot was systemic. Let's talk about the cultural rot, specifically religion. I know there's a debate here. Did Christianity weaken the empire?
This is a classic argument from Edward Gibbon. He argued that Christianity made Romans less warlike. It focused them on the afterlife, not the state. Money went to churches instead of walls.
Does that view still hold up? It feels a little convenient.
Most modern historians push back on it, and pretty heavily. They'd argue Christianity actually provided a kind of social glue when the government was failing. It offered charity, structure, hope, but it did change the identity of Rome.
Okay, so we've got economic collapse, a brain drain to the east, a shifting culture. What about the army? The Roman legions?
Well, they weren't what they used to be. Roman citizens had pretty much stopped enlisting. The pay was bad. The conditions were awful.
The patriotism was gone.
It was gone. So the empire had to hire mercenaries.
Oh, who are they hiring?
Mostly men from the Germanic tribes, the so-called barbarians they were supposed to be fighting. We call them foederati.
Foederati. That seems like a very dangerous strategy. Hey, I know we're enemies, but here's some cash. Please guard the door.
It only works as long as the check's clear. When the money runs out, those mercenaries have no loyalty to the idea of Rome. They're loyal to their paycheck.
And before we get to the storm, we have to touch on the environment. The source material mentions climate weirdness, which feels incredibly relevant.
It is. Historians are paying much more attention to this now. We have tree ring data, ice cores. We have evidence the climate got cooler and wetter during this period.
The late antique little ice age.
Right. For an agricultural society, that's a nightmare. Crop yields drop. And on top of that, you have pandemics rolling through, emptying out the cities, so you have a hungry, sick population, a broke government, and an army of mercenaries.
The house isn't just rotting, it's teetering.
Exactly.
So the stage is set. Let's talk about the storm. The turning point seems to be the year 376 AD. And it starts not with an invasion, but with a refugee crisis.
That is a crucial distinction. We think of these barbarian invasions as angry hordes wanting to conquer. But in 376, a huge group of Goths showed up at the Danube River border. They weren't attacking, they were begging to be let in.
Because they were running from something worse.
The Huns were sweeping in from the Asian steppes, just terrifying everyone. So the Goths asked Rome for sanctuary. They wanted to settle, farm, join the empire, and the emperor, he said yes.
So this could have been a success story. Managed migration, Rome gets new soldiers, the Goths get safety.
It could have been, but, and this is a tragic but, the Roman officials on the ground botched it completely.
Botched it is putting it mildly. The sources say they treated these people horribly.
It was systemic exploitation. They put the Goths in these holding camps but didn't provide enough food. There are accounts of officials forcing Goths to sell their own children into slavery just to get dog meat to eat.
That is horrific.
Yeah.
You have this massive group of armed, desperate warriors inside your borders, and you push them to the absolute brink.
It was suicidal stupidity. So naturally, the Goths rebelled. They didn't even want to destroy Rome at first. They just wanted to survive. But Rome declared war.
And that leads to the Battle of Adrianople in 378.
The disaster. Emperor Valens rushed to crush the rebellion. He was arrogant. He didn't wait for backup. He marched his army right into a trap.
And it wasn't just a loss, it was a slaughter.
2/3 of the Roman army was destroyed. Emperor Valens himself vanished in the chaos. His body was never found. This was the moment the spell was broken.
How so?
For centuries, the legions were seen as invincible. Adrianople proved that the barbarians could not only fight Rome, they could annihilate a Roman army.
And after that, the floodgates just open. The storm is fully inside the house now. And we start seeing these names that become legendary. Let's talk about Alaric.
Alaric the Visigoth. He's fascinating because he spent years trying to get a Roman title. He wanted to be a Roman general. He wanted land and gold for his people.
And Rome just kept stalling.
Lying, betraying him. So in 410 AD, he finally lost patience.
He did the unthinkable. He sacked Rome.
We really have to pause on the psychological impact of that. The city of Rome had not been taken by a foreign enemy in 800 years.
8 centuries.
It was the end of the world for them. St. Jerome was in Bethlehem, and when he heard the news, he wrote, "If Rome can fall, what city is safe?" It just shattered the entire Western world.
But Alaric was, dare I say, a polite sacker. The notes say he was Christian and told his men to go easy on the churches.
Comparatively, yes. He didn't burn the city down. He took gold, some slaves, and moved on. The physical damage wasn't total. But the next group, they were not so polite.
The Vandals.
The Vandals. This is where the storm becomes a hurricane. They crossed a frozen Rhine in 406 AD, tore through France, and eventually set up shop in North Africa.
And we're back to the food supply.
Exactly. They put a chokehold on Rome's grain, they starved the city, and then in 455 AD, they sailed across the Mediterranean and sacked Rome again. This time, it was brutal.
This is where we get the word vandalism.
Appropriately so. They stripped the city, they took the copper off the roofs, the statues, everything that wasn't nailed down.
And just to pile on while this is all happening, you have Attila the Hun, the scourge of God, terrorizing the whole continent.
Attila was the ultimate boogeyman. He extorted huge amounts of gold from the empire just to stay away. But there is a funny little detail about his end that I find ironic.
I love this fact. For a guy called the scourge of God, his death was so anticlimactic.
No big battle. He died on his wedding night. He probably drank too much, passed out, had a severe nosebleed, and choked on his own blood.
A reminder that even the most terrifying forces are mortal.
True. But by the time Attila died, the damage to the West was irreversible.
So we're at the end of the line, the 470s. The Western Empire is basically a shell. The rich provinces are gone. The army is just unpaid mercenaries. And on the throne is a teenager.
Romulus Augustulus.
That name. You couldn't write it better.
It is poetic irony at its absolute finest. Romulus, the founder of Rome, Augustus, the first emperor, and here's Romulus Augustulus, the last one.
So how does it end? The year is 4576 AD. Does the boy emperor go out swinging?
Again, no explosion, no epic speech. A Germanic general named Odoacer, who was leading the troops in Italy, just decided the whole charade was over.
What happened?
The troops wanted land for payment. The boy emperor's father, who was really in charge, said no. So Odoacer just said, enough.
He didn't even kill the kid, did he?
No, that's how pathetic it was. Odoacer forced Romulus to resign, gave him a pension, and sent him off to live with relatives in the countryside.
Here's a gold watch, thanks for your service.
Basically. Then Odoacer took the imperial crown, packed it in a box, and sent it to the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople. He sent a letter that basically said, we don't need a separate emperor in the West anymore.
We don't need an emperor anymore. That's it. That's the end. Not with a bang, but with a resignation letter.
It just quietly faded away. The political structure that held the West together for 1,000 years just dissolved.
But, and this is important for you to remember, Rome didn't just disappear.
No, absolutely not. The state fell, but the civilization morphed. Latin evolved into French, Spanish, Italian. Roman law became the basis for European law. And of course, the eastern half, the Byzantine Empire. It kept going for another 1,000 years.
So when we walk through those ruins today, we're still walking through the echoes of that empire.
We are living in the afterlife of Rome.
So to wrap this all up, let's bring it back to today. We've talked about the rotting house and the storm. What's the big takeaway from all this?
I think if we take anything from this deep dive, it's that great empires don't usually die from one single thing. They fall from a collision of internal weakness and external pressure. It's division, corruption, a loss of shared purpose on the inside.
Combined with climate shifts, migration, and geopolitical shocks on the outside. It sounds like the news headlines, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's a stark reminder that societies are fragile. You have to fix the roof before the storm comes.
And you have to fix the foundation so the termites don't eat it.
So we want to leave you with a question to chew on. We laid out the case, the rot versus the storm, the internal decay versus the external invasions. Based on everything we unpacked, what do you think was the fatal blow? Was it inevitable? Or could they have saved the house if they'd just fixed the plumbing in time?
It's the ultimate historical what if.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.